Midnight hits. Millions of credit cards are ready. Fingers hover over keyboards. Nike's servers are about to face something they've never experienced before. The Caitlin Clark logo t-shirt goes live, and in exactly 60 seconds, Nike's entire infrastructure collapses. We're talking about a company that processes billions in annual sales brought to its knees by a single WNBA player. 10 million site visits in the first minute. Error messages everywhere. The app crashes. IT departments in full crisis mode. And here's what Nike executives are now calling it: the largest product launch in company history. Not a shoe, not a Jordan release. A $40 t-shirt with 2 interlocking Cs. But here's what nobody's talking about. This isn't just about sales figures. This is about a billion-dollar corporation that fundamentally miscalculated women's basketball. And what happened next exposed something much bigger than anyone expected. Let's filter out the noise and look at what really went down. If you believe the story behind the story matters, smash that like button. It tells us we're on the right track. So let me set the scene properly. Nike signed Caitlin Clark in April 2024. That's a year and a half ago. For 18 months, fans have been asking the same question: where is the merchandise? Where is anything with her name on it? Nike, the company that can launch a shoe line in 6 months, took a year and a half to design 2 interlocking Cs on a shirt. Many of you have been saying this for weeks in the comments. Something didn't add up. Nike was moving at a pace that suggested they didn't fully understand what they had. And then the logo drops. September, late-night release. The design is simple: interlocking Cs representing her initials and her ever-expanding range on the court. $40 for adults, $35 for kids. Nike produced 2 million units for the launch. Now, that sounds like a lot until you realize that's more than they typically make for Jordan releases. They thought they were being generous. They thought they were over-preparing. They were catastrophically wrong. 60 seconds after midnight, Nike's servers start smoking. We're talking about infrastructure that manages global commerce, handles supreme drops, processes millions of transactions daily. Gone. The website crashes. The app crashes. People are getting kicked out of checkout. Error messages in 17 languages. And this isn't just in the United States. When Europe's release hits at 6 a.m. local time, the same chaos erupts. Nike's European servers crash again. In Asia, where Clark has a massive following, the shirts are being listed on Chinese resale sites for 3,000 yuan. That's over $400 US. Japanese fans are camping outside Nike stores in Tokyo, just hoping for a chance. Here's the number that should terrify Nike's competitors. Before the website completely failed, Nike processed over 500,000 orders in the first hour. At $40 each price, that's $20 million in revenue before the crash. Not $20 million in sales. $20 million before their entire system collapsed and stopped taking orders. Reading between the lines, if the website hadn't crashed, we're looking at numbers that would have made this the single biggest product launch in sports apparel history within the first few hours. But the real chaos was happening in the secondary market. Professional resellers with sophisticated bots and multiple accounts were having the time of their lives. While regular fans struggled with crashed websites, these resellers secured hundreds of shirts. Within minutes of the drop, shirts were selling for $280, $300, even $500 on StockX, eBay, and Grailed. That's a 1,250% markup. One reseller, going by Sneaker King 23, reportedly made $50,000 on Clark shirts alone in a single night. The Clark logo tee saw more trades in its first day than any other Nike product in StockX's history. We're not just talking about more than other WNBA merchandise. We're talking about more than Supreme drops, more than Travis Scott collaborations, more than limited Jordans. A WNBA player's logo t-shirt became the most traded item on the platform. And Nike's response? Emergency meetings at 3 in the morning. The CEO was reportedly woken up and briefed on the situation. Plants in Indonesia and Vietnam immediately started emergency production runs. Workers were asked to work overtime shifts. The company placed orders for an additional 5 million units. Shipping companies were being paid quadruple rates. FedEx and UPS trucks were loaded exclusively with Clark merchandise. The supply chain went into complete chaos mode because Nike realized what many of you already knew. They had dramatically underestimated demand. Here's where it gets interesting. The next day, Nike's stock price jumped 8% in pre-market trading. Wall Street analysts were upgrading Nike's rating based on a single t-shirt release. Let that sink in. A $150 billion company's stock price moved significantly because of one WNBA player's merchandise. Investors looked at the chaos and said, "This is gold." Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, went nuclear. Hashtag Caitlin Clark was trending globally, not just in sports, not just in the United States. Globally, #1 worldwide. Videos of people trying to buy the shirt on TikTok got hundreds of millions of views. One video of a girl crying because she couldn't get one hit 50 million views. Influencers were offering to pay $1,000 for a single shirt in exchange for content. Instagram was flooded with posts from people who managed to get shirts, and even more from people who tried and failed. According to reports, Drake had his team buy 100 shirts from resellers. This became a cultural moment that transcended sports. But here's what should concern everyone in women's basketball. Nike prepared 2 million units for launch because they thought that was generous overproduction. Those shirts sold out in 3 hours, all of them gone. Compare that to how Nike approaches men's basketball. When LeBron's first signature shoe dropped, it took a week to hit those numbers. Jordan Retros might sell 100,000 pairs in a day, and that's considered successful. Clark's t-shirt outsold signature shoes at launch. And while all this was happening, other WNBA players were watching. Aja Wilson has her own Nike shoe line. She watched a t-shirt outsell her entire collection. Sabrina Ionescu has a signature line with Nike. Her products looked motionless compared to Clark's launch. Even Clark's competitors, players who face her on the court, were buying her merchandise and posting about it. The logo transcended rivalry. What we're witnessing isn't just about one player's popularity. This is about corporate America finally being forced to confront a reality they've ignored for decades. Women's basketball has commercial power that rivals anything in men's sports. Drop a comment right now with what you think this means for the WNBA's next media rights deal, because the numbers we're about to break down change everything. So let's talk about what happened when Nike released the full collection on October 1st. September was just the t-shirt. October was everything: hoodies, shorts, accessories, the complete line. And Nike, having learned absolutely nothing from the t-shirt disaster, was not prepared. They had to implement a lottery system just to give customers a chance to buy. Each person limited to one item. They had to ban IP addresses using bots. This was digital warfare. According to analysts, Clark's logo line generated over $500 million in its first month of sales. That's $500 million from t-shirts and hoodies. Now put that in perspective. The entire WNBA as a league generated about $200 million in revenue for 2024. Clark's merchandise alone produced more than twice what the entire league makes. One player, one logo. More revenue than 12 teams combined. Nike's quarterly earnings report showed a 15% revenue increase, and executives specifically cited the Clark collection as a major driver. For a $150 billion company, one athlete's product line moved the needle. That's unprecedented in women's sports. But here's where connecting the dots reveals something fascinating. Nike's competitors were in full panic mode. Reports say Adidas executives were holding emergency meetings asking how they missed out on Clark. Under Armour's stock dropped 3% the day of the launch. Reebok was reportedly horrified that Clark's t-shirt generated more buzz than their entire shoe lines. Puma executives were demanding explanations for why Breanna Stewart's merchandise wasn't performing similarly. Every sports brand worldwide was asking the same question: how did Nike do this with a t-shirt? The answer was simple. They had Caitlin Clark. But let's be honest about something many of you have noticed. The celebrity response to this launch was carefully orchestrated. LeBron James posted himself wearing the shirt with the caption, "Respect Greatness." That post got 5 million likes in an hour. Taylor Swift was spotted wearing the Clark logo tee under a jacket at a Chiefs game. Swifties and Clark fans combined nearly broke the internet. Searches for the shirt spiked 2,000% after that sighting. Michael Jordan reportedly called Nike executives to congratulate them on the launch. Now, some of this is organic, but some of it is Nike's marketing machine recognizing they have lightning in a bottle and amplifying it. What's real versus manufactured doesn't really matter at this point. The momentum became self-sustaining. The shirt appeared in Vogue, GQ, Hypebeast. Fashion magazines were treating a sports t-shirt like high fashion. The Clark logo became a status symbol. High school kids were fighting over these shirts. College campuses had underground markets where students were trading shirts for PlayStations, concert tickets, even cars. This transcended commerce. This was a cultural movement. And globally, every market Nike operates in set records. China, fastest-selling Nike product ever. Europe outsold soccer jerseys even during World Cup years. Canada ran out of stock so fast that reportedly the Prime Minister's office called Nike to ensure additional supply. Australia's website crash became national news. Japan established a lottery system to give citizens a fair chance at purchasing. South Korea had police managing crowds at Nike stores. This was worldwide chaos. Which brings us to the counterfeit problem. Within a week, fake Clark shirts were everywhere. New York street vendors, online marketplaces, even some authentic-looking websites. Nike had to implement authentication procedures, QR codes, unique tags. They hired additional security. The FBI's counterfeit division got involved. Customs agents were seizing containers of fake Clark merchandise from overseas. For every legitimate shirt sold, 3 counterfeits were thought to be circulating. The black market for Clark gear became a billion-dollar problem. But here's what really matters. What does this mean for women's basketball moving forward? You were onto something when you noticed that WNBA merchandise has never been taken seriously by major brands. The infrastructure wasn't there. The investment wasn't there. The assumption was always that women's sports couldn't generate the revenue to justify major launches. Caitlin Clark just obliterated that assumption. She proved that with the right athlete and the right moment, women's basketball can generate demand that crashes Nike's global infrastructure. That's not hyperbole. That's documented fact. 10 million site visits in 60 seconds. That's Jordan-level demand. That's LeBron-level cultural impact, and it's coming from a second-year WNBA player. The ripple effects are already starting. Nike is reportedly in discussions to expand women's basketball investments across the board. Other brands are scrambling to sign WNBA players to better deals. The league's next media rights negotiation is going to reference these numbers. When networks see that one player's logo can generate $500 million in a month, they start rethinking what they're willing to pay for broadcast rights. This isn't just about Caitlin Clark getting her moment. This is about every player who came before her finally getting validation that women's basketball is commercially viable at the highest level. Every player who was told there wasn't a market. Every athlete who accepted smaller deals because that's just how it is in women's sports. The Clark logo launch proved it was never about market demand. It was about investment and belief. And yes, Clark benefits enormously from timing, media coverage, and factors other players didn't have. That's absolutely true. But what she's doing with that platform is expanding the ceiling for everyone. When A'ja Wilson's next contract comes up, these numbers matter. When Breanna Stewart negotiates her next deal, these sales figures are on the table. the entire ecosystem shifts. Here's what we're watching unfold in real time. The commercialization of women's basketball is happening at a pace nobody predicted. Nike went from cautiously producing 2 million shirts to emergency ordering 5 million more in 72 hours. That's not a gradual shift. That's a paradigm change. If you want to stay ahead of how this reshapes the WNBA's economics, smash that subscribe button and hit notifications. We're tracking every development as the league's financial landscape transforms. Next video, we're breaking down the WNBA's media rights negotiation and why these Nike numbers just added hundreds of millions to what networks will pay. The Caitlin Clark logo didn't just break Nike's website, it broke every assumption about what women's basketball can generate commercially. And we're just getting started. Stay locked in.